So the 1 second decision is, I had to live through that 1 second decision several times during this race. So this race took me 100 and some hours, okay? And this is what people don't get. For you to finish that race, even though I DNF'd, I still finished in the time. So there's a lot of pride in that. If you're 100 and some odd hours, let me use Hell Week. This is a perfect example. Hell Week's 130 hours. And 130 hours is a lot of seconds. And if you lose, let's say you win every second but one, you lost. It only takes 1 second for you to lose the whole thing. So the 1 second decision is just that. You're in a situation where life is sucking. Let's say you're in extreme cold water and your life is flashing before your eyes. Every time that wave goes over your head, your thought process is, I gotta get out of this water. And you're in Hell Week and you're hour one of 130 hours. It's all fun and games, okay? Because at the beginning of Hell Week, the guns are going off. It's like a pep rally. So you're hyped up and your boys are linked arms and you're getting sprayed. The instructors are yelling at you, bombs are going off, concussion grenades, blanks from N60s. Yeah, hoo-yah. But then what they do is they shut that shit off. They shut it off. All that hoo-yah, all that hype, it gets real quiet. And they march you out to that surf zone for something called surf torture. And it's that water, that Pacific Ocean is cold as shit. So no more pep rally. You're now in your head. You're linked arms with, your brothers beside you. You don't know if they're gonna be there long or not. You don't care. You think about yourself. You lay back and that first wave hits you. Your mind goes straight from hour 2 all the way to hour 130. You can't process 5 days of this. You're in fight or flight. It's cold. I can't be cold this long. And then this is where that 1 second decision comes in. You forgot every reason why you wanted to be there. You don't care about SEALs. You don't care about any of this shit. You don't care about fighting for your country. You don't care about that gaudy gold trident that they put on your chest. You don't care about any of that no more. All you want to do is go back home. You want the warmth. You may want something to eat. You want your girl to hold you. All those things of comfort are there in that 1 second. And this is where people lose. So, but what you have to do in that 1 second is hard to process information during pain. Because that pain takes over and you can't think rationally. You're thinking about fight or flight, save yourself. That's not a rational thought. It's not a thought that's gonna get you through hard times. Most people fail that 1 second. So what happens, what I do in that 1 second, and there's a bigger process to all this, but in that 1 second, I physically stayed in that water. Because if I get out of the water, I quit. So I physically stay in the water, but mentally, I'm on the fucking beach with the fucking instructors. And the instructors, it's cold outside, so they got these parkas on, and they're warm because they've already been through it. So now it's your turn to go through it. So mentally, I get back with them. I'm still in the water physically, but mentally, I'm back with them. I'm chilling. I got my parka on, and now I'm thinking logically because I'm warm now. Mentally, I'm warm. I've taken that 1 second. Let's not quit yet, Goggins. Let's think about your options. Where are you going to end up if you quit? It was amazing because in the first Hell Week, I was still doubting myself because these guys come from the academy, the Naval Academy. These guys come from, a lot of them, not all of them, but they come from really good families. They're almost like their dads were SEALs, their grandfathers were SEALs.
Right.
They come from a lot better. I mean, I had to earn my way just to get in the Navy, let alone be a SEAL. And I quit Air Force training and now I'm going for the best. So my self-esteem, even though I was building it up and I lost weight and stuff like that, I'm now around the most uncommon of uncommon people. And I'm like, my God, I'm here. Do I belong here? So your mind has a good way of taking the path of least resistance. Whenever friction happens, friction causes growth. Whenever friction happens, that's why a lot of us don't have any growth, because when friction happens, we go the opposite direction. So in my mind, when friction happened, my mind said, oh, hey, man, let's get out of here,
You're
man.
a fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not real.
Right.
You've lied your whole life. You come from this, you can barely read. Those things, so whenever times got hard, my mind said, you're not good enough. Let's go. So my eyes, my mind weren't connecting. So how you combat that is this. I call it the cookie jar. You have to remind yourself. We all have a story. All of us have gone through very hard time. But when we're in a hard time, our mind has a way of forgetting what all we've overcome. I have a way of taking 1 second when I want to quit and saying, okay, you endured this. So I look at my life and how I came up as the ultimate training ground versus most people look at it as why? Woe is me. God, why?
Exactly.
Why? I had to flip this upside down and say, hang on a second. God was training me to be one of the baddest men on the planet Earth.
Absolutely right.
This was my journey. So instead of looking at it like, oh my God, man, why did I start it? Why did my dad beat me for, why is this? It was to be right where I'm at today. Those things beat me, but they didn't kill me. And I was able to work around them and figure out ways through it. How to live in happiness. That just comes naturally to us. Happy moments, but the dark times, man, you can't get there unless you put yourself there. Life will take you there. But when you get into those dark moments, that's why people, how are you able, man, I couldn't read and write till I was a junior in high school. How are you able to write like this, man? I go to such places in my mind and I study the darkness. Like, it's not just physical. When I was growing up, and I saw my mom getting beaten, I got beat. And I was some stuttering little kid in an all-white school, and I'm on stage, and I gotta say one line. The only way we're gonna get through this is if we study it. So every time I'm in a dark moment, and life's f***ed up around me, whether it be physical or just life, I'm like, okay, let's come out of this motherfucker genius. You know, I studied the black matter of the mind. There's a lot of cookie cutter shit out here in this world. Oh, discipline, wake up early, take a cold shower. It's not. But what they don't teach you within the cookie cutter is like our minds are like a garage. And the garage, if you open a garage that's all cluttered up, it's all f***ed up, you can't put your car in there. But if you organize that garage and you put everything in its rightful spot, you can put that car in there, you can put 2 cars in there, you can put bikes in there. And that's like with the mind. I believe in quiet. There's no growth outside of quiet. The world's too noisy. Your mind needs quiet. For you to find who you are. People ask, what's my purpose? Why am I here? You're not going to find it nowadays unless you lock yourself in a quiet room in your mind and find it. It's too noisy. For me, I could be in a busy street in New York City, horns honking, and I'm walking around with like nothing. It's me and myself in a quiet spot. And when you are constantly reflecting on who you are, where you've been, the journey you've gone through, the journey you can continue going through, the feeling's always there. You don't allow the world to pull you so fast that you forget. You don't allow yourself to pull you so fast that you forget. It's not about staying in that moment. It's about you want to get to the point where that feeling follows you like breathing. It becomes a part of your life, part of your DNA. But it's made. Like these calluses on my hands right now, they're made. Yeah. They are now on my brain. This is now a part of me. It's a daily process, a part of me. And how I go back to that $7 a month place all the time is now I go out and I dig fire line. I'm a wildland firefighter. I don't need to do it. I'm a 43-year-old man. I work with 27-year-old kids.
Yeah.
I'm a rookie. Every day I'm a rookie, it feels like. And
why do you do it?
That's why I do it, man. There's a story I'm gonna tell you about why I do it. So I have a good living now, for me, where I'm at in my life. I was out on a fire in Colorado, and we were digging fire line on this, like 50%, like it was like on the side of a daggone mountain.
Yeah.
And we're trying to keep the fire from moving, and we're digging this fire line 14 inches, or my fault, 18 inches wide, 3 miles long. 12 of us digging. And it is the hardest work. You make $12 an hour, okay? Nothing. You set up your shop. Like when you're done digging, you just pretty much lay down, you go to sleep, and you get up and you dig some more. So not only are you digging, you're cutting down trees. It's hard work. But the moral of the story is I'm 43. Don't need to do it at all. This is why I do it.
You're making money.
I'm making money. I have a good life. I don't need to do it. And everybody asks me why I do it. This is why. This 21-year-old kid was out there, and he wanted a pair of running shoes. So all he wanted was a pair of running shoes. 60, 70, $100, whatever, you know, easy for us, running shoes. But he looked up at the mountain that we had been on for days, digging this fire line. And he said, that'd take me 5 or 6 hours of work to buy those shoes. He said, I'm not gonna buy them. It's the perspective of life. That perspective of life right there, that is the value that we lose. When things start to come so easy in life, it's the perspective that 21-year-old had. He looked up at that mountain and thought, he looked at his hands, he looked at the amount of hours of pulling that Pulaski, that tool, and raking that ground, and then cutting those trees and moving them, and that hours of work. He looked at his feet and said, these old shoes would do. It's that perspective in life that we lose. And that story to most people may not mean anything. It's that story I always want to have in my life. You cannot lose perspective of where you've come in life. The biggest thing you have to do is shut off technology. You have to go dark. What I mean by that is you have to be quiet in your mind. Get away from people. We love being around people. We love talking. We love parties. We love all shit. It's okay to be alone. It's also okay to be unhappy. It's okay to be unhappy sometimes, man. It's okay to say, you know what, man? So you gotta go to the truth first. Who are you? Get really accountable and say, okay, who am I? What's the truth about me? Get to that dark place in your mind. Figure out, it may take months, it may take years. Figure out your purpose. Figure out what you want to be in life. And then from there, okay, I have my purpose. It may take a long time. No one knows their purpose because it's too loud. Find your purpose. From there, all right, you gotta start planning. People love the planning phase because it's very comfortable. Then from the planning phase, you gotta go to execution. So the execution phase, what we all hate, because that's where the real work begins, and that's when the failure happens, and the failure. So, but you know, that's kind of how you have to do it. I hadn't run a 100-mile race, and I think it was about 6 years. You know, I had, you know, some heart surgeries. I had maybe some questioning in my mind about, I call it part-time savage. I started kind of going through this. I started getting, you know, a little bit injuries, a little bit of this, a little bit, things that back in the day never slowed me down. So when I got my head out of my ass and realized that, hey, we have more left, we can still push harder, we're not there yet. I realized, talking to a guy named Cameron Haynes, who did this race, 240-mile race. And I go, is this the new level? Is this the new push? So when I decided to do that race, it was in the back of my mind like, man, I've really become an expert at running 100-mile races. So for me, this was the new level, the 200+ mile race. And what was so amazing about that, as you probably read in the book, I had a hard time the first time doing it. I came back and did better. But what's amazing about the human mind is that it becomes your new norm. Like to think that I can run 200 miles, 240 miles, and that becomes like running 50. I never thought that was possible. This is why I'm always pushing that limit, because I know that within pushing these limits, there's always more. So I end up doing almost like back-to-back 200-mile runs. When the 200-mile race, 240-mile race was hard at once, it became something that was very easy after I figured it out. The mind, as you know, is not a muscle, but it almost is. Yeah. It really is. Right. If you stop going to the gym, your muscles will atrophy. If you stop training your brain, the same thing will happen. So I learned to callus over. I did 4,030 pull-ups in 17 hours to break the Guinness Book of World Records. Your hands become very calloused. Calluses protect your hands. What I learned to do is through mental hardening is callous my mind. I had a victim's mentality. I learned to callous my mind over the victim's mentality. And you have to be willing to put yourself in very difficult situations at all times to be able to do that. So my big takeaway of life is if you're constantly taking the easy way out, you're never gonna callous your mind. I was at MIT. They called a person like me to MIT to speak to some of the biggest head guys on the planet. I was on this panel, and I'll talk about it in my introduction of my book. And all these brainiacs were there, and they called me in. Like you say, I didn't go to college for this, but they're all theorists. I'm a practitioner. And so they're all sitting there, all these great, smart minds from MIT are asking these brilliant guys questions. I ain't say a word. I'm like, I'm intimidated. But I know that half of what they're saying is wrong. Because what these theorists did, even though they're very smart, what these theorists did was they took a poll on normal people. And this is what you get. This is what we cannot do. So theorists love telling you what we cannot do. This is what we can do. So one person in the crowd asked me a question, why aren't you saying anything? I said, pretty much, I disagree with almost everything up here on this panel because I'm living proof that everything that they're pretty much saying is not true. I was a below average person. I was a chameleon living in life who could barely get by. So I know that they were taking the normal mindset of people. They weren't talking about the 1%ers, the people who want it like there's no tomorrow. And so that's what I started realizing was we have theorists and we have practitioners. So what's in my book is from going into the dungeon. And when you're in those points where you want to quit and not quitting and seeing how the mind starts to operate in those moments of fear, anxiety, self-doubt, insecurities. And that's where you learn to fix it. You don't fix it in 72-degree weather, drinking a milkshake, watching TV. You fix it by going into the environment. I did everything I talked about up here. I ran 205 miles. I ran 7,000 miles in 2007 to raise $2 million for Special Operations Warrior Foundation. Thank you. I did it all with a hole in my heart, the size of a dime. So basically, I was sick as hell, and I didn't get into all of this. Once again, all these stories in my book with all these takeaways that I have that, I'm not a theorist, people. There's a bunch of people who are theorists who go to the library, study the mind. They study it in a book. I studied it by being a practitioner. I put my mind in hell, and I realized how it was thinking. And I figured out tools and tactics on how to get through it by being in it, not by studying it, by being in it. And literally, that's how I started callousing over. So I did what? I did 67,000 pull-ups in 9 months, and it calloused my hands. It calloused my hands real good to protect my hands against the bar. I started learning how to callous my mind, to callous over my victim's mentality. And that's what I did. So, back to the hole in my heart. Everything I talked about, 3 Hell Weeks, Ranger School, running, swimming, I did triple Ironmans, I did all kind of crap. And when I got to about 33, 34 years old, I started being extremely sick. When you have an ASD, and so ASD is atrial septal defect, a lot of us are born with a hole in our heart. When we get to a certain age, it closes. Mine was very large. So basically, the good blood would get with the bad blood. So the oxygenated blood would be deoxygenated, and so the bad blood was going through my body, long story short. And that's how I was doing everything. And so they sent me to Johns Hopkins. Everybody studied my body. They studied everything. And one guy says, you know what? We can't find anything on how you did all this. How are you able to do all this? A head guy came in from MIT. And he said, you know how he did it? We are leaving a lot on the table. My book is called Can't Hurt Me. Why is it called Can't Hurt Me? Life isn't fair. We have to understand that. It shouldn't be fair. It's a trial ground. It's a testing ground. It's built to make us harder. It's built to make us as strong as we can, to test us, to drive us. So, mentality is the only thing that gets us through life. I was an underdog. We are all underdogs in life. Even the baddest person in the world should think that way. So you should always have I've never arrived mentality. And the can't hurt me mentality is no matter where you come from, the sewer or wherever you think you're from. When I got out of the sewer, I got to the road and looked around and said, can't hurt me. Nothing should be able to hurt you.